You know, I've been thinking a lot lately about what makes a TV show last. I mean, we've all watched things that were huge for a season, then disappeared, but then there are the rare few, the ones that don't just stick around. They become part of us. For me, that show has always been Little House on the Prairie, and recently, something happened that made me, and millions of fans, feel seen in a way I never expected. This past year, at the Monte Carlo Television Festival, they honored Little House on its 50th anniversary, and not just with a quick mention. They gave it a full tribute, an entire evening, and honestly, it brought me to tears just watching the footage, because this wasn't just another award show moment. It was like the world finally said, "We see what this show meant, and we're grateful." And I want to tell you about it, not like a news report, but like we're sitting together, talking about something that matters. Picture this. The sun is setting over the Mediterranean. The red carpet is laid out in Monte Carlo. Fancy cars, elegant gowns, the kind of event where you'd expect to see movie stars and A-list celebrities, but instead, fans are holding handmade signs, not asking for selfies, but writing things like, "Thank you for teaching me how to be kind." My mom and I watched every night. She's gone now, but I still do. You were my family when I didn't have one. And walking down that carpet, Melissa Gilbert, Karen Grassle, Alison Arngrim, Dean Butler, even Melissa Sue Anderson, always more private, showed up, smiling softly, clearly moved, and you could feel it. This wasn't just nostalgia, it was love. Real, deep, lasting love. Because Little House wasn't just a show we watched. It was a place we lived. A place we went when life was hard, and now, 50 years later, the world was finally honoring that. The festival didn't just call it a classic, they called it a cultural treasure. They said it had done more than entertain. It had healed, taught, guided, and when they played the first notes of that harmonica theme, the whole room went quiet. No one clapped at first, just stillness. Because suddenly, we weren't in Monte Carlo. We were back home, on the prairie, with Charles and Caroline, with Laura and Mary, with a family that, for so many of us, felt more real than our own. Melissa Gilbert spoke that night, and she didn't give some polished speech. She just said, "I didn't know we meant this much," and that hit me hard, because think about it. They were actors. They were doing a job, but somewhere along the way, something shifted. The lines between the Ingalls family and the people who played them blurred, and the love we felt for them, it wasn't pretend. It was real. I remember watching as a kid. My parents had just split up. I felt lost, and every week, without fail, I'd watch Little House. Not because it was exciting, but because it was safe. Charles would come home from the field, kiss Caroline and say, "How was your day?" And Laura would argue with Mary, then apologize. And at night, they'd all say grace together, and I'd think, that's what love looks like. I didn't have that at home, but I could imagine it, and that made all the difference. And I know I'm not alone. At the event, a woman stood up during the Q&A and said, "I was blind as a child, and seeing Mary Ingalls, smart, strong, loved, made me feel like I mattered." Another man said, "After my wife passed, I rewatched the episode where Charles talks to God in the barn, and for the first time in months, I cried, and then I could breathe again." That's the thing about Little House. It didn't just show us a life. It gave us hope. That kindness isn't weak, that standing up for someone is worth it, that a simple "I love you" can carry someone through the darkest days. And now, 50 years later, it's finally being recognized. Not just as a TV show, but as something bigger. A moral compass. One that helped raise a generation, and the tribute didn't shy away from the hard parts either. They talked about Michael Landon, not just as Charles Ingalls, but as the man who fought for every meaningful episode, who wrote the scripts about blindness, deafness, racism, loss, who believed TV could be more than just entertainment, who once visited a little girl in a hospital in character because she was scared and needed hope. And when they showed a clip of the last farewell, the town burning down, Charles, saying, "Some things are worth losing for," you could feel the weight of it. Because that line, it's not just about land, it's about integrity, about doing the right thing, even when it costs you everything. And that's a lesson that never gets old. What touched me most? Seeing the cast together, not as celebrities, but as people who had lived a life together. Melissa and Karen, still so close, Alison Arngrim, laughing about being the most hated girl on TV, but also saying how proud she is that Nellie helped people understand bullies. And Melissa Sue Anderson, quiet, thoughtful, saying, Mary wasn't just a character. She was a voice for people who felt invisible, and they awarded Little House a Lifetime Achievement honor, not just for TV, but for humanitarian impact. Can you believe that? A pioneer show from the 70s, being honored in Monaco for helping people heal. That's not just rare, it's beautiful. Because it means the world is finally seeing what we've known all along. That Little House wasn't perfect. The acting wasn't always flawless. The plots weren't always realistic, but the heart, that was real. And that's what lasted. Not the costumes, not the sets, but the values. Work hard, love deeply, stand up for what's right. Say you're sorry. Forgive. Stay. And when the event ended, they didn't play a dramatic finale. They played something. Simple.audio.Charles, Michael Landon, reading a bedtime prayer. Dear God, thank you for this family, for this home, and for the strength to face another day. Keep us close and help us love one another. And as it played, people held hands. Some prayed, some cried, and I did too. Because in that moment I realized Little House never really ended. It just moved into our lives, into our choices, into the way we raise our kids, the way we treat our neighbors, the way we say, I love you, even when it's hard. And that 50th anniversary, it wasn't just a celebration, it was a thank you from the world to a show that taught us how to be human. So if you're watching this, whether you grew up with Little House or you found it later in life, know this. You're not just a fan. You're part of the legacy. Every time you choose kindness, every time you stand up for someone, every time you say, let's handle this like Charles would, you're keeping the Prairie alive. And that's the greatest honor of all. So here's to 50 years, to the Ingalls family, to Michael Landon, to every actor, writer, and crew member who believed in something quiet, powerful, and true. And to all of us, the ones who carried it forward. Thank you for remembering, for watching, for believing that goodness matters, and always will.